Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the tropes and trends of the horror genre. This is episode 95. Grab your rosary beads. It is time for Holy Horror.
Holy horror.
Holy horror. Holy horror. Holy horror, Batman. I am Liz Williams, and I am socially distanced tonight from
Eric Lee in Portland, Oregon.
And Mike Campbell in Portland, Oregon.
So
2.3 miles from Eric, and how far are we from Liz? 1,500 miles?
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah,
1,800?
Probably about that.
Something like that, yes.
So
all right, Holy Horror.
So
yes.
So Easter came and went. Did you guys do any Easter egg hunting or anything? Or because I think I associate Easter with ham. And ham
and candy.
Oh wow, yeah. No, mine's like I think it was ham and pancakes was usually what I would associate it with. I don't know.
I only associate it with Beaster Day. That's it. just Beaster Day. Eric, there's plenty of religious holidays upcoming right now. Not just Easter. In fact, the first day of Ramadan is on April 24th.
Hey, happy Ramadan, everybody! Almost
happy Ramadan. And Ascension Day is May 21st.
That's a ways
Orthodox Pentecostal Monday is June 8th. So there's tons of religious stuff coming up.
Tons of religious things coming up to celebrate.
And Mother's Day.
Was that a?
But we're talking religion and not holidays because we've already done that.
Yeah.
But not just Christian. Not just Christian religion, Christian-based religion. Although I would be hard pressed to find. Do you know? Are you gonna hip us to a non-Christian horror film?
I have two.
Not me. What?
Really?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
but we'll see if I'm. One of them is in reserve. But I have one of them.
Pagan. Not pagan.
No, but you could do Wicker Man or you could do Midsummer, and that would qualify. I mean, but. I think then you start rubbing up against that odd question of, is paganism a cult or is it a religion? And
right.
And you would I have a number of Wiccan friends who would probably come out and string me up if I actually accused them of being culty. I feel
like when you string people up, that's when you cross the line. I don't know.
Yeah. Was that Mike?
Eric, did you consult your Wiccan friends before doing this podcast?
I did not, because I wanted to concentrate on we'll call them the major religions, and I think we know what that is. That's
okay.
Mormonism and and Shinto, and I don't know. We'll get into what I picked.
I only have Christian ones.
Yeah, but and Liz, you've kind of got the southern fried variety of.
I do. I have a little theme running through mine. I have a little bit of evangelical, Pentecostal. All of my selections take place in the South. So.
And Mike,
I think while I went around the world, I did take a trip around the world. I'm pretty sure I stuck largely with Catholicism, maybe. See, you're already pushing the boundaries of my religious knowledge.
Right. Yes, we here in the Pacific Northwest are proud agnostics.
Yes.
But Mike, you had some sort of a Georgetown reference that actually proves very, very interesting relative to what we're going to talk about. You care to go into that?
I did. I read there was a paper written by a fella at Georgetown University talking about how people get religion from horror films and how people get horror from religion, and why the two things are so intertwined together. And he posited that there's like four main components to horror and religion, and that Venn diagram transect, which is horror films literally scare the hell out of us. They frighten us away from dangerously unorthodox religious or anti-religious leanings, shepherding us back to the religious mainstream. The second thing is, and there's a term for this, which I love this term. It's so cool. It's called chaos Kampf or chaos battle, which means horror films can be myths that sanctify order against chaos, which I think is endemic of every single horror film.
Yep.
The third thing is horror films host otherwise unwelcome religious questions. Monsters are, of course, always asking questions that Sunday school teachers are loath to entertain. And then finally, horror films lean into the scary side of holiness. At the very core of religion is a response to an encounter that's otherwise unknowable from the unknown, or just some sort of other, kind of radical otherness that people just can't get their heads around. And they use religion to sort of compartmentalize that. So yeah, Chaos Kampft.
That's a
which is going to be which is also going to be my new band name.
I would go to that show.
Kampft.
Nice. Well,
I would go to that show.
The beauty of religious horror is I think that it fairly cleanly parses the line a lot of the times, or particularly I think in the 70s, I think there was a lot of drawing a line of good versus evil, that priests versus Satan, or and that you could, there was a moral and the certitude of the church as a bastion of good versus devil worshipry, but that kind of blends together, because then we also start seeing things of where the religious institutions are untrustworthy and or hiding something, whether it's something of doom or some blasphemy that they're trying to prevent from getting out. Those are also I think more recently you see constructs that feature that in when they talk religion. I think because have either of you guys watched the new Shudder series Cursed Films? Because
not yet.
Every single episode, they're short. They're like 30, 35, 40 minutes. But every single episode deals with sort of a religious component. And it's really interesting because sometimes they're talking about how the curse is not necessarily a manifestation of Satan being upset with the fact that they're producing the film, but the curse is the fact that they've brought religion into the film, and it's actually created this kind of like there's a psychological term for it, but it's essentially sort of bringing that sort of bringing that onto yourself, because you're more receptive to the idea of being cursed.
Interesting.
So they're good. They're really good. And in each in each episode they have multiple religious scholars talking about the impact between religion and horror. So if you haven't checked out the new Shudder series Cursed Films, I do highly recommend it. It's good.
I would assume that both Poltergeist and The Omen are prominent in that.
Yeah.
Because those are famously cursed movies. Relatively.
Yeah, Poltergeist, The Omen, The Exorcist, The Crow, and Twilight Zone. I think that's it.
Oh,
yeah.
Twilight Zone.
I think those are the ones those are the ones they cover. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's good. Cool. They're really good.
Have to check
Add
that out.
Add it to the quarantine viewing list.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So
Liz,
did either of you guys grow up with a particular religion or religious bent?
I grew up Lutheran. I went to Catholic high school, as many people in New Orleans do. New Orleans is a pretty religious city, predominantly Catholic, but as anybody who comes here and visits, they'll tell you that we got voodoo too, but mostly Catholic. So a lot of people here go to Catholic school, but nothing, no crazy religion or, super religious. So just run of the mill. We're going to go to church on the big days of the year. And then, Catholic school, but no one paid attention in religion class.
Yeah.
Eric, what about you? Your parents were biologists, so were they snake handlers? Maybe.
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was an anaconda cult. No, my parents, I think they wanted to see. They liked the social structure of the church, and so we went to what is probably one of the more progressive and more accepting and least interesting churches, and that being the Episcopalian Church. It's dry, it's ritualistic, it's slow. You have priests in robes reading from the Bible, telling a lesson from it, and they were, I was the classic kid dragged to Sunday school, and so baptized, confirmed, all that kind of stuff. But it's because I had to. I thought, actually, I still have some friends who I made through going to church, but it was, I got bored to the point where I became an acolyte and having to, work as an altar boy, carrying the flags and the crosses and that stuff around during the opening. I forget what they don't call it the opening ceremonies, but
the opening ceremonies.
But it was like,
let's get ready to religion.
Row down, come on.
Probably would have stayed longer.
That would have been fun.
Yeah,
but it was, there was a lot of. It felt like the old hymnals and the and just really, really basic kind of religious stuff that you would see like on British TV. It's dry, and it was always weird when I would go to another church, like a Methodist church, and the dude would be in a suit, right? And it was like, and then yelling, and it was like, I do not get this kind of church. I always thought though I would have loved to have gone to a Black Baptist church just for the singing,
yep.
Because the singing.
And the hats. Everybody here gets dressed up on Sunday. If you go to a Baptist church, it's a formal occasion. Hats, gloves. It's like Easter Sunday every Sunday.
Your Sunday best.
But speaking of weird though, is there anything particularly supernatural or odd about your religious experiences at all?
Nope.
Nothing.
No,
unfortunately.
Can you make something up on the spot right now?
I was waiting for that wine to turn into blood, and it never happened. And I was waiting for those wafers to turn into fleshy bits, but that never happened either. So, that was kind of, it's like, well, it's all metaphorical. It's like,
right.
That's not what you're saying. You're saying, this is going to become the blood of Christ. Do it. But
you're like, I'm not even going to learn about metaphors until 9th grade.
And Mike, did you have any religious experiences?
Well, I was telling Liz, my dad was in the seminary, which he doesn't really talk a lot about us, and he doesn't listen to this podcast either. So I can talk about the fact that he doesn't talk about it much, and I don't know what to glean from that, but we'll just say it's peculiar. I'll just stick with peculiar. But no, my mom, I think she desperately, because she was raised as a Presbyterian, I think she desperately wanted sort of that comfort and calm that was brought from the Presbyterian church from her upbringing. And so we dabbled in Presbyterianism, dabbled very lightly. But I think, by the time I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade, the dabbling had come to a very dull end. Yeah. So not so much.
So now you get to explore your the philosophy and religion through horror podcasting. So
that's right.
So
that's right. Horror is its own religion.
Good segue.
Let's have at it, Mike. Why don't you go ahead and lead us off?
Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to start with a film that Eric knows what I'm going to talk about here. This is a film that goes by many names, and if you've listened to the podcast before, I like horror films that go by many names. This goes by La Hija de las Tinieblas, or The Daughters of Darkness, or The Sisters of Satan, or Innocents from Hell, or Mark of the Devil 3, but apparently it was falsely presenting itself as the second sequel to Mark of the Devil, even though it had nothing to do with Mark of the Devil.
Okay.
This is a 1977 Mexican film called Alucarda.
Oh, hey, here we go.
Yes, Alucarda, and it is one hell of a crazy trip. If you like lots of nudity, lots of screaming, lots of blood, and satanic orgies, go see Alucarda, because it is all of those things.
You will find God.
I haven't even heard of it.
You will find God. Basically involves a young woman who births a daughter, Alucarda, and she begs this hunchbacked gypsy. There's your sort of there's your race there's your racism, or your sort of latent racism. The gypsy to take this daughter was born out of wedlock to an order of Catholic nuns, and she does. 15 years later, the teenaged Alucarda still resides at the convent. Alucarda takes interest in a young woman named Justine, and then they're sort of exploring these kind of like, forbidden sexuality and repressed sexuality. And because Justine is eager for a friend, Alucarda is eager for a friend. While the two of them are playing in the woods one day, Justine and Alucarda, they come across a band of gypsies who are holding a funeral procession, and one of the men, who is a humpback who apparently helped deliver Alucarda once upon a time, offers to sell Alucarda an amulet, and shortly thereafter there's Satanism and orgies and lots of blood. But basically, Alucarda is effectively possessed at that point. She brings the possession back to the convent. And then while there is a lot of silliness, a lot of blood, a lot of Satanism, and a lot of nudity, the thing that's interesting about it is that it helps. A lot of different scholars have looked at the film and talked about the fact that it looks at the clash between sort of tradition and modernity and myth and reason. And do we still have Liz? I think we lost Liz.
No, we got Liz.
I'm here.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Okay. I'm listening.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to make sure. But it's really interesting because it looks at sort of it specifically, explicitly looks at religion in the context of this, the constant clash, not only just sort of within Mexico and the Mexican national history, but it looks at the clash between tradition and modernity, and it's pretty interesting in that way. Because towards the tail end of the film, you kind of get into this interesting thing with the there's like a local doctor who keeps interrupting these sort of like kind of faux exorcisms and floggings, and there's a lot of flogging. That's where a lot of the blood comes from, is the flogging. He keeps interrupting them and saying, saying to the convent, like, why are you torturing these young girls? It's like they have enough problems as it is. You don't need to be hoisting all these sort of artificial myths on them. And so you have that clash, but then you also have this sort of clash between sort of like, Satan and God and so forth and so on. So it is a very good film. I think a lot of film scholars look at this film as one of the first films to really, really delve into kind of religion in a horror context, like really, really deep dive into that construct. So Alucarda, 1977.
So I'm kind of curious to know, because the gypsies are the classic other, right? They
right.
Whether you're talking vampire movies, whether you're talking cult kind of things, and to organized religion, they represented the temptation of something exotic. And
Right.
But there's no, I mean, his, like the gypsies of Europe, the Romani, were Slavic peoples. What
Right.
are the gypsies in Mexican culture? What are they?
Well, that's the thing that's interesting is the film is all shot in Mexico, but it's actually an English language film,
Oh.
which is sort of weird. Yeah. So it's like, while there's a couple Mexican actors, it's mostly U.S. and European actors in Mexico.
So they're just like saying gypsy, meaning
So gypsy
any like
meaning
kind of
as-
traveler, kind of other,
yeah.
not
Yeah,
Mexican
so they're-
gypsies.
Wandering cultist.
Yeah, they're not Mexican gypsies. Yes,
Yeah.
they're just wandering cultists. They're not portrayed as a specific subset of sort of Mexican culture. But you're right. I mean, you're right, because that's definitely how they're portrayed, though, as the other, as the supernatural other. I mean, kind of in the same way. Looking back at it now that you mention it, it's kind of like in the same way that the Alucarda portrays the gypsies in the same way that gypsies are portrayed in like the Wolfman, right?
Yeah, and I just saw.
Save for the nudity and the Satanism.
Yeah, that
'Cause you don't get that with the Wolfman.
or not the 1941 Wolfman or 41 was
well,
that?
no.
Yeah.
No.
So
Yeah.
All right, Liz.
All right.
Interesting choice. Okay, mine is a little bit more recent, but still, and takes place here. Mine is the 2001 directorial debut of the late great Bill Paxton, and it is Frailty.
Oh, Collision.
This is one of my favorite movies. Oh, we have a collision, really?
Yeah.
All right.
But I have a backup, so we're good.
Oh, okay, good. This is a quiet little film that kind of, I think, snuck up. I remember seeing it in the theater, but like the person I went to see it with was like, I have no idea what this movie is about at all. I've never heard anything about this. So this movie stars Bill Paxton, Matthew McConaughey, and Powers Booth, and it takes place in the imaginary town of Thurman, Texas, which is kind of like East Texas, and it takes place back in the 70s. And Matthew McConaughey plays a guy named Fenton Meeks, and he goes into the FBI claiming that his brother is this serial killer called the God's Hand Killer. And Powers Booth plays the FBI agent who he's kind of confessing and telling the story to. So he spins his tale of that he and his brother Adam grew up, and their father, played by Bill Paxton, one day came home and said he had been visited by an angel who was going to give him a list of people who were really demons that he had to destroy one by one with an axe, and he buried them all in their rose garden. So this is the kind of like religious horror that I like. This is, I don't know, taking, I guess, your traditional Christian mythology and turning it on its head a little bit. I love the Pentecostal, Southern snake handler, that kind of thing. I love this kind of stuff. So I love this, where it's a guy who says, like, no, I'll be able to tell by touching this person that was on this list that I came up with in my head that they're a demon. And he's really seeing it and is doing this in front of these two young kids who are played, his sons, who are played by two little young actors named Matt O'Leary and Jeremy Sumpter, who are probably now, well, they definitely are now grown men, since this is like almost 20 years old. 20
years ago,
yeah. So this one has a little bit of a twist to it, so I'm not going to say too much more, but you are with Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth as Matthew McConaughey is taking him back to like where they grew up, because he's saying, hey, my dad started this and my brother carried it on and was, killing people up until now. And he had committed suicide, and Matthew McConaughey had to bury him. And now he wanted to like tell the story of their family. So this is a real kind of a sleeper horror movie. It's very slow. It's not going to be super blood and guts, but it is.
It's intense, though.
Really effective and intense. It is intense, especially because it's children who this guy is so like mental that he's getting his, I don't know, they're probably 11 and 9-year-old sons to participate and watch him kill people. So
Right.
this one is one of my favorites. I love this. And Bill Paxton, oh man, I miss him.
It's his
He's
best
done a lot for the
performance.
horror community. It's one of his best, and it's one of Matthew McConaughey's best. He's really good and one of his earliest. So
Yeah, I
Frailty.
I really
Frailty's
liked how they bookended the story. You front ended and back ended with the adult Fenton in McConaughey,
right?
And then you had the meat of the story in the middle, and it's kind of it creates sort of an odd narrative structure, but it's almost like the unreliable narrator kind of a thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And you get a lot of exposition, and then you launch into the story, and I think relative to what our discussion about today about religion is this is a man's personal relationship with God, and what he believes God is telling him to do, that he's going to be the arm of the Lord, and he is going to smite those who, the demons. He's going to root out the demons, and he's going to enlist his boys,
casting them out.
Yeah, and his boys are going to be part of his army, and the boys aren't really into it, and particularly when they just see the neighbors dragged in to get butchered, they have to sort of reconcile that with what they see in their father, and whether and the consequences for disobeying the father are severe. So that there's a ton of drama built into all of this about.
Well, and I think it's less about his personal relationship with God as much as it is his personal relationship with himself.
Yeah.
Because that's like all of his foibles start to manifest themselves, and he uses God as a front for all of that. And that's you really see that in this film.
Well, yeah, but I think
Eric, we saw this when we used to watch movies together once upon a time, which we do not watch movies together anymore. But we saw this together, and I remember both of us being like really struck by it when we saw it. And I don't remember when that was. It wasn't 2001 when it came out, but it was like it was years.
2004, 2005,
years
something
later.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
It's good though.
It's a good little
I like
film.
Frailty.
Yeah,
It holds up.
Yeah, as opposed to sort of like talking about the religious institutions, this is about the individual, and it's a real nice, fantastic personal story.
Yep.
All right.
Eric, what
you got?
So speaking of sort of the broad overview kind of a thing, going from the really personal to the broad scheme, I found actually an interesting Jewish horror movie. And that is, and actually it's like a pop cultural one. This is Jerusalem from 2015. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
Oh yeah.
This is
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it.
Two Jewish American girls head to Tel Aviv on vacation.
Is it Jerusalem with a Z?
With a Z. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Jerusalem. And I think there's Sarah, who is played by an actress named Danielle Jadalin. I may be saying her name wrong, but she's trying to put the recent passing of her brother behind her, and so she's going to go on a vacation with her best friend Rachel, and she's sort of the high-spirited party pal. Who's on a mission for them to have the time of their lives, because they've been seeing all this stuff about, it's like, hey, Yom Kippur in Israel, what could be better? And Tel Aviv is a nightclub hotspot. It is, this is going to be great. And they get on a plane and they meet a young anthropology student named Kevin, played by Jon Tumarkin, and he convinces them that really, Tel Aviv is interesting, but if you're going to go to Israel for Yom Kippur, you got to go to Jerusalem. And so he's very cute, and so Rachel is going, hey, you should, telling Sarah, you should follow this guy. He's got something going for him. So they decide to abandon their original plans, and they head to the old city. And this is actually a found footage kind of it's not really a found footage film. It's a shaky cam movie for sure. And it's told, and it's presented through back in a time when people thought Google Glass was going to be something. Right. So Sarah is the you're seeing the story through Sarah's Google glasses, and they use it actually fairly effectively.
Oh my gosh.
Where they would have like a Facebook pop up where like your dad was like, "Hey honey, how's the trip going?" It's like, "Dad, doing fine. I'll tell you later," kind of a thing. And then Google, show me the nearest route to the Wailing Wall, that kind of stuff. And so it actually. At first, I went, "Oh God, shaky cam movie." But it actually
is it all the Google Glass, or is it like, do they mix in other footage?
They mixed in some. Well, it's always through the view through the Google Glass, but sometimes she takes her glasses off and puts them on the shelf, and so it allows you to see.
Okay.
So see some other things happening, and then you get to see the actress herself, and then some other people try the glasses on and that kind of a thing.
Okay,
but. It actually is a fantastic. I think the director is Doron Paz, who did last year's the movie The Golem. So I think he's an Israeli.
That's what I thought you were going to say when you said a Jewish film that just came out. I was like, The Golem.
Same director, but they really show off. They spend a good portion of the first part of the movie just going around Jerusalem. And they run into like street urchin kids who steal bags but there's also something kind of sinister going on, and Kevin, their anthropology friend, is talking about the rise, revelations. Essentially, the return of, he's a scholar. He's fascinated with the end of days. So guess what? We get some end of days, but but before they get there, they stay in this really cool little hostel, and they meet their host Omar is very charming, and so then you eventually have this pairing up of the two young couples. But things start getting strange. There's no rain of blood or frogs, but all of a sudden, like these massive flocks of birds would zoom in and out of frame, and eventually there's like some air raid sirens go off, and they show Israeli jets streaking over the old city and then dropping bombs, and they start panicking, and you get the demons are coming out from the crypts, and they've got wings, and they're
like not metaphorical demons.
No, actual demons are coming back.
Demons.
And and a lot of them are actually coming back to pay visit upon those who they know, and so there was sometimes like, be careful what wishes you leave at the Wailing Wall, because you never know what might happen. And then the other thing but it reminds me of Cloverfield. It's shot very much like Cloverfield. It has it's kinetic, it's claustrophobic because the streets are narrow. You're constantly running around. They're trying to escape through Solomon's mines to get out of the city because the Israeli soldiers have shut down the gates. And then in the meanwhile, these Nephilim, which are the giants of biblical lore, coming back to destroy the city, and you see them sort of stomping around and trashing. So you get a kaiju movie mixed in with the demon movie mixed with this, and I kind of was like, I'll give it a shot. And
did this even have a release in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think so. I've saw
not in theaters or anything.
No,
probably not.
No,
it wasn't in theaters.
It's a budget movie.
I don't remember hearing a thing about it.
Yeah,
it's low budget.
I was definitely turned off by the title. Once you put the Z in there, I'm like, probably not going to watch it.
That's I had a Final Destination fear about this movie because it had a group of very young, attractive actors. And it's a bunch of them running around in panic, but I think it pays off pretty well. You do identify with them. They make some foolish decisions. The biggest decision, they shouldn't have gone to Jerusalem. That was sort of a mistake. But who was to tell you that the end of days are coming. Although they do, and they start the movie with a rabbi, a priest, and an imam walk into a room, right? But they show a woman who's come back from the dead, and everybody's like she was, everybody knew she was dead, and then she's come back, and apparently it's a portal to hell, and then she sprouts wings, and they shoot her in the head. That's how the movie opens, and then you go, okay, all right, I get it. There's demons. They're going to Jerusalem, but they all made this, and this was like 20, 30 years ago that they made it, that the major religious leaders of the city agreed to keep this under wraps.
Oh, okay. So they didn't know.
So nobody knew that this was coming, and it was, I think that they sort of did this Larry Cohen guerrilla style, right? Where they actually took a handy cam and went through the streets of Jerusalem and had the actors just sort of play out without actually having to, because there's no way they're going to shut down the Dome of the Rock for a little horror movie, right? So they just sort of snuck in there and they did some shots, but it's really cool. It looks the handheld shots look great. The CG is kind of budget. So the demons look the wings don't look like super effective, but the story is effective, and I found it compelling, and I was like, well, this is, and it was explicitly there was a lot of sort of talk about what do you do, what are the traditions of Yom Kippur and all these kinds of things, and so and they were on pilgrimage, and so it's like, hey, here's a Jewish horror movie, and I was sort of looking around, and gave it a shot, and turned out it was pretty good. I'd probably give it 3.5 stars.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, that's not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Mike,
get a review up.
Yep,
on the site pronto. My second film is a film I guarantee you neither of you have heard of. Had you heard of Alucarda?
No.
All right, you haven't heard of this one either. This is the 1971 film by Lucio Fulci.
Oh no,
who brought us City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, House by the Cemetery, Massacre Time, Lizard in a Woman's Skin, White Fang, 4 of the Apocalypse, Zombie 2, The New York Ripper, and in the Brain. This is Don't Torture a Duckling.
I've
Have you
heard
heard
of
Don't
this.
Torture a Duckling?
Yeah.
Yes,
I've heard
Don't
of it.
I've not
Torture a
seen
Duckling.
it. Yeah.
And the soundtrack for Don't Torture a Duckling is done by Riz Ortolani, who also did the soundtrack for Eric's favorite movie of all time,
Cannibal
Holocaust.
Oh, Cannibal Holocaust. Okay. My other favorite horror movie.
Yes. Yeah, your other favorite horror film of all time, Cannibal Holocaust. This is a really interesting film that follows a newspaper reporter, when that was actually a thing, when people actually read newspapers and there was print media, and a somewhat promiscuous young woman who essentially tried to solve a series of child killings, which is a little dark, in this remote southern Italian, really teeny tiny town. And there was one reviewer compared sort of the dynamics of this little teeny tiny town to Harper Valley PTA, and he said it's sort of like Harper Valley PTA, but instead you have suspects including voyeurs, drug-addled pedophiles, gypsies, and priests. The main themes behind the film, of course, are repression and sin and guilt, because as they're starting to figure out or pull apart this mystery of the mystery of the kids who are dying, and it's boys who are being killed. They quickly discover that the murderer is trying to sort of rescue. It's basically like teen and preteen boys. The murderer is trying to rescue the boys from their own sexuality. So he's killing them and trying to
this time it's boys.
trying to send them. What's that?
I think it's interesting that this time it's boys from their sexuality as opposed to girls.
Right. Yeah. No, it is. It's interesting, but he's basically trying to kill them so they're in a essentially in a state of like uncorrupted grace, right? Like before everything goes totally off the rails, we'll get them now. They can go straight to heaven and there'll be no problem. Yes.
Where does the title come from? Do they?
Great question, because they don't actually they don't murder.
Okay.
They don't kill any ducks.
But it's not beyond.
They don't torture any ducks.
But for
are there ducks in the film?
Yes, there is a duck in the film, and there's no duckling in the film, but there is a doll. And what is the Spanish term for the Italian term for duck is, I can't remember. Pepperino. It's a doll that's in the shape of a Donald Duck, who has its head, the duck doll has its head pulled off by this little girl who I think she's mentally retarded. Anyway, she pulls the head off the doll, and that, in her doing that, taking that act, it provides a clue to who the murderer is. And I'm not going to spoil it for those people that are going to run to the video store as soon as the pandemic is over.
You guys are like the only ones that have a video store.
So for all you Portlanders who want to go to Movie Madness,
I know. Get in line.
To go rent. Don't torture a duckling. I like it. I mean, well, in my book, Lucio Fulci can do zero wrong. So I'm gonna be a homer for Lucio Fulci no matter what the case. And this, if you do like his films, this was one of his earlier films, I guess. I mean, yeah, probably earlier, because I think he did some stuff maybe in the late 60s. Mm-hmm. And he did stuff up until I think around the early 90s. So this would have been kind of like right when he really kind of got going on a lot of, it looks like he did some stuff in the early mid 60s. So yeah, he was around obviously for a long time, but this was kind of like right before he hit his real stride. Don't torture a duckling, 1971.
Just don't.
Liz, off to you. Don't torture a duckling.
Will not. Got it. Message received. That sounds super bizarre. Okay, yeah. Mine is a little bit less bizarre, but still one that I like. And this is kind of a found footage, faux documentary. And this is the 2010 movie directed by Daniel Stamm called The Last Exorcism.
Oh,
this one takes place down here in I think in Baton Rouge and then in the bayous of Louisiana. And this one,
I picked this one too.
Oh, did you really? Damn!
Ding, ding, ding,
better
ding,
not
ding,
have
ding.
my next one.
Crossover.
Okay.
I got no backup.
Okay.
Got no backup.
Well, so this one, because I'm staying on my theme. This is he's a disillusioned evangelical minister. So this is a minister named Reverend Cotton Marcus. He had grown up in the church, and these are the evangelicals. This is the preacher in a suit holding the Bible and screaming about hellfire and damnation, and everybody saying like praise Jesus and yes and everything. And he grew up in that and was always going to be a preacher. And then his son was born very, very sick, and he started to lose his faith, but he still would go perform exorcisms and preach and everything. And he was like, well, people, this is just what they want to hear. This is what they want. It's not real. Right. So he had lost his faith. And so he says he's going to let this documentary film crew follow him around and see how he fakes people out, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And so he gets a letter from a farmer out in southern Louisiana who says that his daughter, Nell, is possessed by a demon. So he goes out there and, goes in and says, oh, yeah, your daughter's possessed by Abalam, this demon. And you see all his tricks of like he's putting buzzers on his hands pretty much to act like he's getting a shock, or, things to mess with the lights. And so he thinks he goes out there one and done. Well, turns out, nope, he's not done.
Because he's an amateur magician as well.
Yes, he is, which is...
Yeah.
And he's played by...
Part of the shtick.
Yeah.
Part of the shtick, yeah.
He's played by an actor named Patrick Fabian, who you've seen in other things, and he's great in this. He has got kind of a 90s Bill Clinton-esque-ness to him. He's got that
he's
kind of that charm and like, hey, buddy. Yeah, that kind of thing.
A little bit of the car salesman.
Little bit. Yeah, a little bit. You have to have that if you're going to convince people that they've been exorcised from their demon possession. But then, so when they leave after the first exorcism, now the girl like shows up in his hotel room and is, being foul mouthed and everything. And then it turns out that she's pregnant, but she's a virgin. And then, people are accusing her father of maybe having done something, or her brother. So he goes back to do another exorcism, and this time shit gets real. And there is some, lots of contorting, some broken fingers, some like teeth coming out, flying around the barn. Your classic Southern exorcism and movie
Praise
exorcism
Jesus.
things. Yep,
Yes.
a lot of that.
It gets, the last like quarter of the film gets super duper weird.
Yes.
When she's at the hotel and she tries to disrobe, and then she tries to lick the film producer, and then she barfs all over herself.
Oh man,
that's how you know she's really possessed.
Yeah, that part got really weird. And then they go into like at the end, it's like there's, as you mentioned, there's a real, but it's a perceived pregnancy. There's a cat slaughter, and there's like a cult, this weird cult-like atmosphere. And there might actually be demons.
There might be demons. I won't spoil the ending.
Yes, maybe.
Might be demons. So I like this one because I like how it started out that he's like, oh yeah, this is all fake, and come along with me and I'm going to show you how you do it. And then his faith is restored when he realizes like, oh wait, something is definitely going on here. And he's trying to pull the wool over her family. And it turns out that he's getting his faith restored, but what's it going to take for his faith to be restored? Is he going to survive this whole thing? I think this is a fun one. They did do a sequel that was absolutely terrible, had like no connection to this, except that it had the same actress who played Nell, which is an actress named Ashley Bell, who's great.
She's really good.
Yeah. So skip that and just watch The Last Exorcism. It is a really good, it's a good found footage. It's good mockumentary, and it's a good little religious horror exorcism movie.
Cool.
Yep. I liked it.
I'll have to catch it. I haven't.
You haven't seen it? It's good. It's good.
In my review of The Last Exorcism on the scariestthings.com website, 1T, I found a number of problems with it, but I actually really liked it. Amongst the problems I found was that the film was set in the backwoods of Louisiana, but nobody had an accent. Pastor Cotton was a third generation Louisiana preacher, but he too didn't have an accent. It was a found footage film, but it had music and jump scare stingers that run throughout the film. And Pastor Cotton and the tag-along film crew never seemed to be too freaked out about the fact that they just might be in the middle of a real-life exorcism. That said, none of the outstanding issues with the Last Exorcism are deal breakers.
No, they're not deal breakers at all.
They're not deal breakers. But yeah, there's like tons of inconsistency, but it's still super fun.
They should have had.
I'd rather have no accents than bad accents, though. If the actor can't do it, just skip it.
Right.
They should have had Ed Orgeron come in to do some voiceover.
Oh, they should have. That would have been good. But everybody would have been like, what?
And I forgot about this, but now that I'm looking at my review, there is a great Scooby-Doo-esque ending at the end of the film.
There is.
Yep. It's Farmer
Johnson.
Johnson.
It's good. all these negatives that Mike is saying, I 100% agree with, but it's still a great movie. You'll be very satisfied.
They're good negatives.
Yeah,
they're good negatives. Yeah, they're things that like jump out at the screen at you, and you go, "That's really ridiculous," but I'm totally going with it because this is kind of fun.
I'm along for the ride. It's fun.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, I guess
it might. I said. I concluded my review saying, "Who doesn't love Scooby-Doo? It might be the most competent cartoon ever filmed."
Nice.
All right, so I've crossed over with both of you. All right, no one will have my third.
I know.
Okay, so
I'm done.
I guess so it comes down to me for the my number 2.
Yes.
So I'm going to return to one of my favorite movies recently. This is, and I'm going to dip into Hindu culture, and this is Tumbad, which I've espoused a couple years ago.
Quite a bit, yeah.
And I think this is, well, one, it is the great, and so far the only great Bollywood horror movie that I can attest to. But it is also sort of a dive into Hindu culture. It is very much an Indian movie and not a movie that has gotten a makeover from a Japanese or an American horror movie, which they are prone. That India is really prone to just doing copycats.
Oh, yeah.
And this is an Indian original, and it is sumptuous, and it talks about sort of the sort of the polytheism, and then a banished god who has been Hastur, who's been exorcised from the pantheon of the Hindi gods, and there's a temple still. This is a god of greed and gluttony, and lures in everybody who's close is corrupted by this, and I think the story follows a little boy who watches the corruption of the caretakers of the temple and watches them just turn into sort of monstrous, sort of almost sort of half plant, half people kind of beings, trapped to assigned to this temple, and he is, this little boy has been, and he doesn't know it yet, but he is gripped by the lure of gold and untold gold, and but his mother manages to tries to sequester him and his brother away from this. So this is the boy's named Vinayak, and when he grows up, so they flee, and I think his brother falls ill and dies, and so then they head down river to a larger city, and he grows up and he comes back because he is obsessed with the gold and the god of Hastar, and there's a saying, there's like, go to sleep or Hastar will come for you, and he's managed to actually trick the gods into allowing him to get in and come out of the temple with treasure, but he is becoming, the man is just being more corrupt, and it's consuming his soul, and it sort of explores a lot of sort of the ethical. It's another personal ethical dilemma, and how it gets handed down, and how greed corrupts, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There's a spectacular eventually his son wants to go down and get the gold with him, but it's a dangerous thing. I think Vinyak's business partner catches him and tries to lure him away, but he gets done in by creatures that are guarding this tomb, the creatures of Hastur. So it also shows sort of what another culture's version of the devil looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is it's more of the tempter, and less the trickster god, a Loki type of character, or deity, as opposed to Satan, who wants just to destroy the world, or but there are I think there are tales of trickster Christian demons that are just there, like what is who Faust does? Is it Beelzebub? I forget who the devil who makes the Faustian deal. Do you guys recall?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, so literature scholars, we are not.
Yes.
No.
Yes. No.
But this is, I think it is, people who are afraid to watch a foreign horror film because they don't get the language, or they might not understand the culture. I think this is one of those movies that's really easy to get into. I think you snap right into the plot. You understand the gravity of what's going on, and you understand the lure of greed. And it's fascinating, right down to the very end, where the father and the son have to make some very big decisions at the end. It's a fantastic trip, and I think you can get this movie now. For the past couple of years, I kept on saying, well, you're gonna have to wait for it. It hasn't had a deal. It's on Shudder. So for those of you who are out there,
good,
because it was the very first Indian movie to ever get shown at the Venice Film Festival, which is a prestigious festival. It also played big at Fantastic Fest and was a winner at Fantastic Fest. I think that the adult Vinayak character, an actor named Sohum Shah, has got the best mustache ever. so if nothing else, watch it for
the mustache.
Sohum Shah's fabulous mustache.
Go for the scares.
Yep.
Stay for the mustache.
Exactly. So anyway, that's a fun little dip into a religion, and it's granted it's as quasi-religious as my other takes here, right? It's not actually talking about the main pantheon, but it talks about it in context that there was a god who has been punted from it. I'm always fascinated with Hindu because it's polytheism. I just find it fascinating that we still have a major polytheistic religion out there. And sometimes my gateway into it is through things like horror movies. So
yeah, there's only like a billion people in India,
right?
Something like that. So there's just a billion.
Just a
1
billion.
billion.
And I do happen to know that we have a lot of fans from India who are looking for a good horror movie, and you've got one of your own. I think we
got one.
Yeah.
We got one.
And I'm going to keep
it
looking.
over and over.
He's the director has done another one, and I'm going to try and see if I can find it. I think
cool.
I don't know if it's been released yet, but I think it was due to have been released last year. We'll see if it's out there.
If anyone from India is listening and you can hip us to another good Indian horror film, please do so.
Yes.
We're starving for them.
Yeah.
Starving.
All right, so we now going back because we have to back to Liz.
I got my
Liz.
last one, and obviously, unless this is Eric's third choice, we won't have any crossovers. Okay, so it's quarantine time. You're stuck at home, so you need something to watch that's going to take you a long time. So I have a TV series for you.
Oh, okay.
But it's only 20 episodes. It's only 2 seasons.
Only 20 episodes.
2 seasons. It is the series Outcast, based on the comic book by Robert Kirkman and Paul as Sita. It was on Cinemax from 2016 to 2017. So you can get this on the Cinemax app, or Hulu or Amazon or whatever. And it stars Patrick Fugit, who if you've seen the movie, oh my gosh, I just totally blanked on it. He plays the Rolling Stone writer in the movie with Kate Hudson and
Almost Famous.
Shoot, what the hell is the name? Almost Famous. Thank you.
Oh yeah,
good movie.
So he plays a young man struggling his whole life with the effects of demonic possession, and he teams up with John Anderson, who is a evangelical preacher in West Virginia who believes he's fighting a holy war against the evil forces of Earth. And so Patrick Fugit's character's name is Kyle Barnes, and so he's grown up with the effects of demonic possession and a mother who was had a mentally ill, and then now the people of his town have completely shunned him because he is convicted, not convicted, but everybody thinks that he beat his estranged wife Allison and their daughter Amber, so now they're separated from them.
Suspected.
So suspected, yeah, allegedly. He allegedly did. And then, so the first season kicks off with a 8-year-old boy who lives across the town named Josh, who appears to be in the clutches of demonic possession himself. But there's something very different about his possession and its connection to Kyle's. So they spend the season trying to figure out, what is going on in this town? Why is this other little boy possessed? Why has Kyle been possessed his whole life? And the opening scene of the entire show really sets the mood. It is the 8-year-old kid, Josh, staring at a cockroach crawling across his wall, and he goes and just smashes it with his hand and then licks it.
Oh! Don't do it.
It is. No, don't do it. But so just from that one image, okay, something's very wrong with this kid. So, demon. It's a good show. It only had 2 seasons, so it didn't get picked back up because I think it kind of suffered. I've never read the comics, but I think it kind of suffered a little bit from what The Walking Dead suffering from, of just like
overextended. I
think it could probably go on and on and on and on if they would let it.
There's no actual end point.
Right. Yeah. There's no end. So Cinemax just like, nope, you're going to end here.
But in The Walking Dead, there are endings for a lot of characters. You do. They've churned through so many people in that show. I stopped watching about 3 years ago. Yep.
Years ago. But
I gave up on all of it.
Yeah.
This one's good. I would say do
the
Outcast.
TV show, the book. Yeah. Eric, did you ever read Outcast, the book?
I had not, but I was aware of it. I do like Kirkman's work. Of course, Walking Dead, but I also like Invincible, which is his superhero title. Also a good read.
Right.
Also something that I had to give up after 3 years because it just, I kind of like my stories with a finite ending. I think both, although
a beginning, middle, and an end.
But he has wrapped up Walking Dead, and he wrapped up both of those series. So I'm game for watching this because I think that
it's fun. It's really fun. And it has an ending.
Right.
So I don't know if the books have an ending. I don't know how many issues there are, but this show does have an ending. It's really good, but I think it ends at the right time. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's something that could have been 5 or 6 seasons. You would be a little bit tired of that. But I think it's a really cool story, and it's got fun characters and a little bit of the Robert Kirkman ridiculousness. But unlike The Walking Dead, where it's the zombies right in your face, you don't know at the beginning what's going on, and how you see the demons is pretty fun.
Well, so this isn't my pick.
The comic.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, the comic is still going on.
Oh, are you kidding me? Holy moly! Okay.
Started in 2014, and as of today, April 2020, it had 44 issues, and it's still going.
So
watch the show then.
Watch the show.
So Liz, did you ever watch Preacher?
I did not like Preacher.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Wayne watched it. He liked it. I gave up after about 2 episodes. I said I'm out. And I had heard really good things. It's just this is the only one of those kind of shows that I've really been into. I'm not comic book kind of.
Well, yeah, because this, it's kind of funny how actually it sort of dovetails in with, it's not my pick, but Dominic Cooper, I think it's Garth Ennis, a comic book, the beloved comic book. But it's a preacher and a vampire and a renegade go on a road trip and cast out demons and whatnot.
Yes.
It for me, I got through about 2.5 seasons and then I got frustrated with it because they, like Walking Dead, there was a portion of it where they They got stuck in New Orleans.
Yes, they were actually physically here because we saw them in a restaurant once. The cast.
Oh, okay, yeah. But that thing sort of kind of sat down sort of in the middle of its run, and I was like, and it never really got back up for me. But I did enjoy the first couple of seasons of it. I thought Ruth Negga was she's something else. Yeah,
she's great.
But anyways, that isn't my pick.
Another good one.
But
watch that after you watch Outcast.
So I'm going with a guilty pleasure. And,
yes.
And this is one that I think a lot of folks will have seen. It is, I've got a soft spot for it. It's a war between angels and angels. This is The Prophecy from 1995.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Starring Christopher Walken and Elias Koteas, Virginia Madsen, Eric Stoltz, Amanda Plummer, Adam Goldberg, and Viggo Mortensen before he was Aragorn. Anyhow, this is Eric Stoltz's Simon, an angel on the run on Earth. And he has with him a Bible that describes an unpublished 23rd chapter of the Book of Revelations. He has essentially the director's extended cut version of the Bible on him. In it, the book reveals that there is a second war in heaven that pits angels versus angels who revolt against human primacy over God's love. So Simon also has in his possession the soul of a very bad man, a soul so awful that it would tip the scales in the war in heaven. But he's injured and with a fight with another angel, and he hands his creepy Bible to a young priest who is Thomas, Adept Thomas, who is Elias Koteas, and he now becomes the only human to understand the coming doom for the world. And Simon also transfers that dark soul to a little girl who's a Native American girl and trying to throw the scent off. And then Christopher Walken comes in. He is Gabriel, leader of the angels. And this thing feels like, you guys remember this, it feels like you're watching a music video, right? And so what you get is these long, wide shots of the salt flats, and you see Christopher Walken in a black trench coat and sort of and stalking towards the camera. It's like, it's totally, it's really, it is a classic shot. And you just wait.
Is it maybe a little
90s.
dated?
It's very 90s.
A little dated.
This is you're just waiting for like for Nine Inch Nails to show up and start. It's like playing in the background, right? And
now, Eric, have you seen Prophecy 2, 3, or Prophecy?
I saw Prophecy.
Forsaken
I saw Prophecy 2, and it was horrible.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I think I probably saw Prophecy 2
because I like Prophecy.
Yeah, Prophecy.
But it didn't have Christopher Walken
2,
in it.
3, and 4. Yeah. No, 2 and 3 did. 4 did not.
Oh, okay. So maybe I saw 4. I saw the one without Christopher Walken in it, and I was disappointed. But he Walkens the thing up, right? Lots of kind of glowering and hunching over people and making sort of growling declarations of wicked intent, but sort of sly. He's not a guy. He's not one to roar, right? And it's there's the race against the clock. It's sort of the little girl's you're getting the Native American spirit cleansing exorcism going on at the same time, and it's kind of a funky religious mashup kind of a thing. It's total melodrama. It's not a great film. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Christopher Walken seemed to be enjoying doing what he was doing. There's like, you get the storm clouds and vast deserts and angels in black and lots of eyeshadow and sweaty Eric Stoltz sort of bleeding out, and what's
Eric
not to like.
Stoltz, where's that guy been?
I know. It's like he had
Eric Stoltz. If you're listening, where have you been? Come on the show.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you about.
Tell us what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, about your experience playing a half dead guy.
Amanda Plummer is in it too.
Yes,
that's crazy.
And Virginia Madsen plays the teacher. Adam Goldberg, who's in Saving Private Ryan, plays the stoolie. It's It was a thing of its time. It belonged sort of side by side with The Matrix and The Crow and all that kind of,
Right.
the post grunge kind of dark take on, sort of soaked in Anne Rice sauce. So, I kind of I kind of dug it. It's popcorn stuff. Doesn't really speak to anything super religious other than it's like there's another book of Revelations out there and Armageddon's coming and it's going to be angels this time and Lucifer apparently isn't as bad as you might think he is. So, that was
okay.
He's not that bad.
Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, it's your job now to watch Prophecy 1, Prophecy 2, Prophecy 3, The Ascent, and Prophecy Forsaken, Prophecy 2, The Uprising, Prophecy Nope.
No. See, the problem is that this is
Electric Boogaloo.
I think that
you got to watch 2, 3 and 4 and rank them for us.
Oh,
that is your job.
No.
Charlie goes 1, 2, 3, 4.
The director, I think, showed his cards. He got lucky with this one, where I think that he had a concept of this thing, made it pretty interesting. But his other credits involve all of the post Christopher Lambert. Or actually, no, all the Highlander sequels, which were horrible. I mean, you talk about bad sequels like Highlander 2, The Quickening. He's the writer for those movies. He's a terrible movie writer, but he got lucky with this one. So,
he did a Hellraiser short too.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So
true story. Yeah.
So Gregory Wyden.
Right.
So Gregory Wyden, if you want to defend yourself, come on our show. I'd like to know what you've been up to for the past 10 years. So anyway, so that
bring Eric Stoltz. Bring Eric Stoltz with you.
Bring Christopher Walken with you. That's why I'd love to talk to Christopher Walken.
Yes. Oh dear God. Yeah, that's for real. That's for really real.
So that gets us to the end of my list. I think. I think we caught a broad swath. We didn't actually. Nobody had to bring up The Exorcist or The Omen or, some of the.
We brought up. An exorcist, not the exorcist.
An exorcism.
An exorcist. An exorcist.
I was surprised that Mike didn't go with the Picts. I was expecting that one to come out. That was.
I already talked about the Picts.
Yeah, the Picts put me to sleep.
I already talked about the Picts.
Yeah.
I was tempted to talk about The Omen only because as I mentioned at the very top of the episode, I watched the episode of Cursed Films on Shudder. They did a whole episode on The Omen, and I thought about it because the Omen is so steeped in religion, both from an auditory standpoint as well as a visual standpoint, coupled with the fact that it's kind of the ultimate gateway film. So there's my third film, The Omen. Go see The Omen.
So, you got any grave digging on you? Liz, no. Mike?
I don't think so.
I don't have any grave digging.
I think we're all running crazy long, so I think we should wrap it on up.
All right. Well,
but I have a tagline from Outcast, and the tagline for Outcast is "Possession is just the beginning."
Nice.
Yeah.
Fitting for our holy horror.
So, happy Ramadan, everybody.
Happy Ramadan.